Have you guys ever felt like your job was starting to get a bit boring, or you wanted to try something new, but just didn't know what you really wanted to do? Because I definitely did. So what I'm trying to do here is trying to discover all the different types of jobs that are out there to help you guys get an insight into what that actual job does in a day-to-day activity, and if you're interested, the ways to get into that role. Hey guys, my name is Ben and welcome to my channel where we're going to try to discover all the different types of jobs that are out there and create a more transparent future. We're going to go over what that job role actually is, the type of activities that you'll be doing in that job, 3 awesome tips that you could get if you're interested in joining. There are some misconceptions that will sort of clarify when it comes to the jobs, and most importantly, is this job still going to be relevant in the next 5 to 10 years? So let's get started. So the job role that we're going to be talking about today is the UX and UI designer. Now, for those that don't really know what it is, UX design stands for the user experience design. It's basically a whole bunch of techniques, methodologies, and a framework that you can use in order to solve a problem while staying focused on the people aspect of things. UI stands for user interface design. It's basically, your look and feel of the actual app, a phone, or an experience, trying to make the whole process seamless to everyone. For example, your mobile banking app. How seamless does it feel when you want to log in, check your accounts? Like, all of that was designed through the user experience and user interface designers. So I think it's quite important when we're trying to decide a job that we want to do is actually what you'll actually be doing in that job, right? So the actual activities and the actual tasks that you'll be doing. So firstly, when you're in this sort of job, you'll be doing a lot of interviews, sort of facilitating workshops, leading it. And the purpose of that is that you're trying to discover the root cause problems. You're not trying to solve some surface level symptom or for a bank or for a company. What you're really trying to do is dive deep, interview a lot of people, communicate with them, and try to understand what is the actual root cause problem. Secondly, you're gonna really have to learn how to collaborate with other team members. So a lot of times you'll be not only working with the clients, you'll actually be working with your team members, you're working with the actual users of those certain products to actually come up with a solution. Again, we're trying to design the solution for the users. So it's actually really important to be able to speak with them directly rather than try to make guesses and assumptions in terms of what the actual end user would like. So finally, a lot of negotiation and prioritization is involved. So being able to negotiate with the end user in terms of what is actually necessary and what is actually a want. And then from that, you would then need to prioritize it, right? So being able to go to the customer, go to the business owners to then prioritize what would be the most value to the end users. There's something called the minimal viable product, or MVP, when it comes to the tech world. And a lot of this is actually what is the minimum standard or the minimum requirements that you will need so that the end user will have a seamless sort of experience and get exactly what they want. Now, moving on, if you are someone who really wanted to get into this job, what are some tips that I could give you so that I could help you throughout this whole process? Now, the first tip would be to definitely start now. Start building your portfolio, because that's a really important aspect when it comes to UX or UI design. Being able to show your work is a big plus when it comes to the hiring process. Now, a few ways to do that is that a lot of online resources are completely free these days. So, you can bridge the gap in terms of if you needed certain badges or if you needed certain certifications, like Udemy actually gives you them, Skillshare. If you're able to prove it, it will actually go a long way. Now, one of the reasons why I say that is that online resources and online courses actually make you do a project, and actually at the end of it, you'll be able to showcase that to not only yourself to be proud of it, but actually showcase it to the other companies to say, hey, by the way, I've done this project, have a look at it, and these are the sort of capabilities that I can provide. The second tip that I could probably give you is that you really need to understand what sort of company or work style you're after. Now, when it comes to UI or UX design, there's actually a lot of pathways. We'll narrow it down to just 3 of them though. The first one is in-house design. Now, a lot of this basically means you work for a company that owns a specific product or service. And basically what they do is that they just focus on that product, they keep working on it, keep improving on that product, and then sell those or to be able to deliver those to other companies and organizations. Another one could be, you could be a freelancer and be your own boss. Now, a lot of times you'll be working on small projects, or you could be even working with teams. So don't think of freelancing as, you're just a solo and you're going about it alone. You basically work for yourself and you do your own time commitments, but you can work with other individuals as well. Finally, there's something called agency-oriented design. Now, this is more for like marketing or advertising. when you go down this path, you'll be doing a lot more detailed and in-depth design work. So if that's something for you, then maybe that's the pathway that you could approach. Now, finally, the third tip would be to actually build your confidence and your curiosity. Now, a UX designer's core skill is always being curious, right? So being able to always ask why, try to understand the root cause problem, because again, like I mentioned earlier, you don't want to resolve a surface level problem. Now, there are companies which sink millions and millions of dollars into trying to solve what they think is a problem, but actually isn't. So it's really important to understand and confidently say, this is the problem that you're dealing with, and this is the right solution for it. It's a core skill that every UI and UX designer should have. Now, when it comes to every role, right, there are some myths or misconceptions about it. So it's really important to be able to clarify those before you actually decide if this is the right role for you. The first myth or misconception is that, when it comes to doing UX or UI design, you're not only going to be doing that type of design. Most likely, and it really depends on your company in terms of the scale and the size of it, but a lot of the times you'll be diving into either service design or business design as well, which we'll cover in later episodes. So if you're thinking that becoming a UX designer will only be doing UX design work, you might want to reconsider. You should really understand your passion for design in general, because you're going to be doing and diving into a whole bunch of other design work, which you may not expect to do. Again, it's really up to you and depends on which pathway you want to take. The second misconception or myth is that most people like to think that as a UX designer, you have to be an extrovert. Now, don't get me wrong, it definitely is helpful to be an extrovert, especially because of the nature of the job. You really have to interview, you have to communicate and talk to people. But as long as you're able to reach outside your comfort zone every once in a while in order to lead or facilitate and actually test your limits, then actually UX design may be right for you. It really depends on what you want. And again, the UX designer that I actually interviewed told me that he was actually really shy and really introverted when he was young. So it really depends on you, but and a way to overcome that is actually to start building your confidence, as I mentioned earlier, one of the key tips. And a way you can do that is start doing online courses and resources. The more you sort of practice it, the easier it becomes, the easier you're able to demonstrate it, and the more confident you will be. The third and one of the final misconceptions is that most people like to think that UX or UI design is all about building apps. So it really isn't. Remember, what I mentioned at the really beginning was that UX design is a bunch of frameworks, techniques, and methodologies to help you solve a problem while being focused on the people. Now, this can be digital or not. And a lot of the times, as working in my current company at IBM, a lot of times it's not actually suggesting a digital product as a solution. A lot of times it could just be process re-engineering, it could be changing how they view things, and a lot of the time it's change management. So again, don't be too focused on that. If I'm going to UX design, I'm going to be building apps. Again, although most cases may be that you're building an app, a lot of the times it really isn't. Now, for most of us, we can be quite risk adverse when it comes to our career. So a really important question would be, do you think that UX or UI design will be relevant in the next 5 or to 10 years time? Now, I think that this role is definitely going to stay, but I believe that the description of this role will actually change. Like most roles, there are so many opportunities these days, and there's opportunities for it to expand. Now, if you really think about it, imagine the technologies that weren't here 5 to 10 years ago, right? Now we're landing into the cryptocurrency market, we're landing into the metaverse, which Facebook has recommended. Now, when it comes to these new technologies, a lot of the times it's going to be a bit difficult to use. Now, I like to think about UX and UI design into making it a seamless experience, especially when it comes to a customer journey. Where there's new technologies, there will definitely be some new problems, especially for the users. So I definitely don't think that this job is going away in 5 to 10 years time, but the role would definitely change in terms of the responsibilities, the technologies that you will use, and the softwares as well. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to see more, make sure you click over here to see my latest video. And if you're curious about any other specific roles, make sure you put it down in the comments below. Also, make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and press that notification button just to make sure that you won't miss out on a single episode. See ya.